So if we want our kids to have grit, we want our kids to have strength and inner confidence, we have to be willing to kind of get them into these environments to do it. And I think the same thing can happen on a Ninja Warrior course. I think the same thing can happen going to a stream or camping with a kid. You don't have to big wall climb to do it. It's just the way we do it.
Joe Evermore thinks a lot about how to guide the next generation of adventurers. He's an advanced climber, a business coach, and most importantly, he's a dad to 3 boys with another baby on the way. Joe and his wife Ann live in Colorado, and they take wild parenting to a whole new level. Their kids are 5, 8, and 10, and each of them is a skilled hiker and rock climber. In fact, you might have heard of his oldest son, Sam Adventure. Yes, that's actually his middle name. In 2022, Sam became the youngest person to climb El Capitan in Yosemite when he was just 8 years old. Climbing is an incredibly important part of the Evermore family's life. By doing wild things outside together, Joe and his wife Ann are teaching their kids to be loving, courageous adventurers. I'm Shelby Stanger, and this is Wild Ideas Worth Living, an REI Co-op Studios production brought to you by Capital One. Joe Evermore, welcome to Wild Ideas Worth Living. We're really excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Okay, so what is your background in the outdoors? Because it's one thing to be outdoorsy, and then it's like a whole other level to take your kid to climb rocks and sleep on portalages and become the youngest kid to ever climb El Capitan. Like, you guys are raising rippers, like to the extreme, you and your wife. So were you outdoorsy? Did your dad take you outside?
Yes, my parents would always take us on about a 3-week vacation each year where they would fly out usually to somewhere like Bozeman, and then we would go into the Canadian Rockies, and it was usually like a road trip where we would go and see the bears, you know, and it wasn't as much like climbing, but when I was in 4th grade, I began to talk to my parents about wanting to climb after seeing climbers, and they got me a pass to the local rock gym. And basically I had to promise that I wouldn't rock climb outside at the time. And that's where it started. And by junior high, it was getting real dangerous. I had secretly bought a rope and was getting out.
So you were kind of early. Like, I don't know how old you are, but like what decade is this where you're like in 4th grade and learning to rock climb?
This is the 90s, yeah.
Okay, so you started rock climbing really young. You get hooked. Where did rock climbing end up taking you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it was just always like, you know, just this fun thing. I mean, I got to live in Alaska for a year, and I was always interested in trying to find something else on my spare time to go climb. And it's just always been a passion of mine. And then as soon as we had kids, me and Ann were both climbers, we didn't know what to even do with the kids. So we had one of those backpacks to carry them. And we literally would be like climbing these multi-pitch routes with, you know, a 2-year-old. He'd be harnessed and clipped in, and we'd get out toys on the ledge, and we'd be climbing these, you know, big, tall mountains. How
did you meet your wife? She's also a climber. Like, she sounds rad. She sounds like someone I want to be friends with.
Yeah, you would like her. We met through mutual friends, and every year I would try to rally some people to go to the Cirque of the Towers. It was always like kind of one of my favorite places to climb. The Cirque of the Towers, I'll tell you about it. It would be a place that would be as famous as Yosemite if you didn't have to hike like 2 days to get to it. And it's in Wyoming. And so I would always invite like 40 or 50 people, and like 5 would come. And Ann was one of those who said yes to this trip. And me and her and 2 other guys were climbing what we call Wolf's Head. And it was just, we started late, and I kind of lost my way along the ridge, and it started getting dark, and I couldn't figure out the route. And so I made the decision, let's just like hunker down and like wait till morning. And we spent the night just kind of shivering up there. And as we shivered all night, like, that's when we kind of fell in love.
Oh, I love good adventure love stories. That is so awesome, Joe. How soon did Sam come into the picture after you guys fell in love?
When we were on that climb, I was like, wow, this girl's awesome. And it was really right after that we were dating. And dating was pretty fun. She lived in Rapid City. So I said, oh, maybe I'll just come to Rapid City for a while and I could date this girl. So I went to Rapid City, and I needed to get back to Pinedale, and there was no transportation at the time to get to Pinedale. And so I was making a sign to hitchhike to Pinedale, Wyoming. And her dad saw me and was like, "What are you doing, Joe?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm making this sign to get to Pinedale." He's like, "Well, I'll drive you on the first leg." And I was thinking, "Oh, this is great. I could talk to Ann's dad about my intentions, you know?" And so I get in the car with this guy, and the first 30 minutes of a 3-hour drive, I'm like, "Hey, Dave, I just want you to know I'm not like a player. Like I really am interested in your daughter, and I'm actually really interested in marrying your daughter." And he says, like, "Joe, don't even think about marrying her until she finishes college." And that's like 4 years away. And then the rest of the 3 hours of that drive was like me asking a question and him answering it in as few words as possible.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so I remember getting out in Cheyenne and feeling so depressed on the side of the road, kind of beaten up by the situation. And on that trip, I just realized I just got to wait. I've got to wait for this girl.
I am seeing this really common thread in your life, just hearing this one story, that you will go really far for love. And maybe that's like the love of your wife, the love of Sam, your love of climbing, but you're not afraid to go the distance and do hard things for love. I love that. It sounds cliche, but it's true.
There's another layer to this story you have to hear then. So at first it was 3 years, but then Ann changed her major, which made it 4. And so I'm now like coming up on that last year when it's time to marry Ann. And so I came up with this idea of how I wanted to propose to her. And I basically, for Christmas, I had paid for us to take the advanced free fall course to be skydivers. And each weekend I was painting 10,000 square feet of blue tarp to say, "Will you marry me?" And I proposed to Ann while skydiving, and it was amazing. And she said yes. So we married in 2011 and then moved to Colorado. And then Sam was born in 2014.
When Joe and Ann had Sam, their first child, it was clear they weren't putting climbing on the back burner. They both had climbed long enough to understand that humans, and kids especially, are natural climbers. So Joe and Ann decided to take a unique approach to parenting, and they put Sam on the wall as early as possible. In their house, their kids learn to crawl, then walk, then climb. They start climbing before they can even run. Why did you decide to get your kids involved in climbing at such a young age?
Kids actually naturally climb. It's actually something that I think people unlearn throughout their life. It's one of the skills that you gain and then you lose. And one thing that's important to us is that when our kids climb something and they're young and we think like, "Oh, he might fall right there," if he's not going to like break his arm, we're the kind of parents that like don't step in. We like are very cautious about this because like we want our kids to like tumble down. It's saving the kid that actually begins to build in him this very cautious child. Like if I think he's going to break his arm, like I'm under him and spotting him. But like kids naturally climb. My kids climb everything. I think it's something that if you just encourage it a little bit, they're going to climb.
I think it's hard for parents to let their kids fall.
I know. And you have to let it happen young. And then you walk over, you're like, "Are you okay? Can we get back up? Can we get back on it? Like, let's try it again. Maybe you should put your foot over here." They need that. It's part of climbing.
Joe, I think it's really great that you took Sam climbing from a young age and he liked it. I know a lot of parents who are surfers who take their kids surfing and they hate it. And I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who take their kids climbing and they hope that their kids are going to like climbing, but they don't like it. So I'm curious, like, how it all worked out for you. Like, how did you know your kids would like it? And what would have happened if they didn't like it?
Yeah, climbing has a bit of misery to it. And so you really have to be so intentional in doing this with kids. And so in our house, like, climbing is really like a way of life. The kids like it because we do it as a family and we do it in a way that's really fun for them. What's most important to us is that our kids have big goals. And after they've done their big goal of the year, we make ice cream cones that are like this big, and they could never possibly
like
eat it
that's
all.
Like 3 feet. Like that's like a 3-foot high ice cream cone. Okay.
We usually put things through the middle to hold all the pieces together, but it's more about like their visual in their mind that makes the trophy unforgettable. And then there's usually a crowd of people like that are with us that will all eat whatever Sam can eat. We don't do a lot of sweets, but like we've made that a tradition after their big climb that if you give the person at the ice cream stand a big enough tip, they'll make you like a mountain of ice cream.
Sam was playing on a rope swing in the yard when I was interviewing Joe, but he did pop in a couple of times. I asked him some questions.
My name is Sam Evermore, and I'm the youngest person to do El Capitan, the all-rope ascent.
Sam, what advice would you give to other young climbers that are just starting out? Like, if there's another kid that wants to start rock climbing, what advice would you give them?
Start climbing at a gym, because if you fall on a tree, you can break a bone.
What's something you have to have on an overnight climb?
On an overnight climb, I really love to bring snacks.
What kind of snacks are your favorite?
The Sour Patch watermelon gummies.
I think it's important to reward kids for doing hard things. Adults too. I know that after I finish a big goal, I like a reward, a night out dancing, a day to just surf, or even something as simple as yummy frozen yogurt. When we come back, Joe talks about how he decided that Sam was ready to climb El Capitan in Yosemite and why the family changed their last name. He also shares his advice for raising young adventurers. Exciting news for all adventurers and outdoor enthusiasts. Get ready for 11 days of double rewards when you shop at REI with the REI Co-op MasterCard. Starting September 6th through the 16th, REI Co-op MasterCard members earn 10% in card rewards. That's 2 times the usual awesomeness on all your gear and apparel purchases. If you don't have the REI Co-op MasterCard yet, don't worry. Apply today to make the most of these epic rewards. Head to rei.com/MasterCard-podcast to learn more. That's rei.com/MasterCard-podcast. Terms apply. Born in the mountains of Colorado, Honey Stinger has been making sports nutrition for athletes since 2001. If you haven't tasted their stroopwafel, you need to get your hands on one today. Honey Stinger brought the first energy stroopwafel to the US as a portable, delicious fuel for endurance athletes who enjoy the great outdoors. They've since launched energy chews, gels, and bars that all have the ideal ingredients to help athletes like you prepare, perform, and recover from the activities you love. Whether you're crushing your next hike, catching a wave, or cycling across town, Honey Stinger's delicious energy waffles, chews, gels, and bars are a great fit for any activity. Visit your local REI store and check them out today. Hey, it's Shelby. For those of you who might be new around here or that need a refresher, the philosophy of REI Co-op is that if you want to build something that stands the test of time, you build it together. With this in mind, REI has worked with their amazing partners who specialize in adventuring and who are passionate about a more inclusive outdoor community to bring to life their brand new TrailMade collection. The collection is full of joyful colors and prints, and many of these pieces are available in a wide range of sizes, from extra small to 3XL. TrailMade provides hikers and backpackers with accessible gear and apparel options, including non-gendered sleeping bags, colorful backpacks, trekking poles, hiking apparel, and jackets. The TrailMade collection is available exclusively at REI, in stores, or online at rei.com. Feel more like you on the trail and grab your TrailMade gear today. Joe Evermore is focused on giving his children a positive relationship with climbing and a habit of going after big goals. When his oldest son Sam was really young, Joe read about a 10-year-old girl who had climbed El Capitan with her dad. He was inspired and he realized that Sam would probably be ready to climb El Cap when he was 8. That would make Sam the youngest person in recorded history to summit the mountain. For 2 years before they went on this expedition, Sam climbed daily. In addition to regular training, the biggest thing Joe had to teach Sam about was something called exposure. On huge climbs like El Cap, you're completely exposed on the wall. There is no nook to hide in or trees to tie up a hammock. It's just you and the rock and the thousands of feet below you. Even for adults, this type of exposure can be scary. To help Sam adjust to this type of environment, Joe brought Sam on smaller climbs that had similar conditions. When it was actually time to climb El Cap in the fall of 2022, they made the ascent with a team of 5 people: Sam, Joe, and 3 of Joe's climbing buddies. Joe stayed within 10 feet of Sam on the wall at all times. So El Capitan, how did you decide to do this, and why do you think this would be good for Sam?
I think there's a lot of actual science behind it. I had this guy come up to me at a conference, and he was explaining to me that when children experience trauma and they're apart from their parents, the actual literal integrity of the brain is like weak. It like weakens the brain. But when a child experiences trauma in the presence of his parents, when his parents are guiding him, walking him through it, the actual literal integrity of the brain, the physical aspects of the brain are stronger. The plasticity of the brain is stronger. And it's like, that's where we learn things. Like when it comes to building a child's character, we can't just like read in a book. Like, let me tell you today what courage is. Like, it's not something you can just download like that. Like a parent has to kind of set an environment for a child to actually learn certain things. And that's one of the things, like courage, resilience, as you mentioned earlier on, those things come through actually discovery. And so if we want our kids to have grit, we want our kids to have strength and inner confidence, we have to be willing to kind of get them into these environments to do it. And I think the same thing can happen on a Ninja Warrior course. I think the same thing can happen going to a stream or camping with a kid. You don't have to big wall climb to do it. It's just the way we do it.
I love how you parent and how you set so much intention and love and dedicate so much time to your kids. Could you just take me through your climb in El Capitan a little bit? Just like day by day, step by step, briefly, like the Cliff's Notes version of it.
El Capitan's a 5-day adventure. There's some different disciplines to move along this wall, but it's mostly about the rope ascent, climbing that rope and overcoming the exposure. The most challenging piece on the wall was really getting around what they call the Great Roof. It required some technical lowering out. You're so high on the wall and it's so massive that it's hard to even grasp it. Like as a climber, like I've spent a lot of time on walls and like I remember feeling like, holy cow, this is so scary. Like it's like you're on the moon or something. You're so far away from Earth. Like you can't even see it. People are so small in the valley at that point. You can't even see a person. Like you could see a car, but not a person. And you're totally exposed. So the whole top of El Capitan, most people don't understand this, is basically pitched back a little bit. And so when you rope ascend, the person rope guns the rope up to the next set of anchors. They climb it. And then when we undock from our anchor, you actually kind of swing out into space. It's almost like you're on like a wing of a plane or something. I mean, you are hanging from nothing, it feels like.
So are you doing this with like your kid under your arm, or are you both
No. He's
solo?
doing it. He's on his own. He's on his own line. He's got to undock and swing out and start going up. And then I'm on another line that like follows him.
How do you manage your fear? Because you have your own fear, but then your fear of your child.
I think the same way that I'm training him. I mean, courage isn't about not having fear. It's about having fear and pushing through it. Fear is such a unique thing. It's actually this thing that keeps us alive. Like, people without fear are very dangerous people. Like, we're not trying to do that. We want to, like, really be able to logically rationalize through it. Like, and say, even though this is terrifying, I know that what these ropes are capable of, what those anchors are capable of, what my partners are capable of. And I base it on those pieces of information instead of like your instinct, because your instinct says, no, this is not a good idea.
So every single day you guys are climbing, you're doing different traverses and sometimes rope swings and just technical stuff. Every day is scary. Every day is different. But then every night you're sleeping, you're eating, you're having to go to the bathroom. What is all of that like?
It's a ton of work. It is like constant work. If we're not climbing, we're hauling. Each person drinks about 2 gallons of water per day. And so we're talking like literally hundreds of pounds of just water have to be hauled up the wall. Like for a full-on camping trip, has to be hauled up the wall. And we have to set up these complex anchor systems to be able to haul that kind of weight. And then it's like you get to the next camp, you have to set the whole camp up. Next morning, you got to get up, you got to tear the whole camp down. And like all doing that while hanging from anchors.
So you're camping, but you're camping on the side of the wall and your tent is not on the ground. It's in the air.
Yeah, so the portaledge is connected to anchors, and think of a piece of fabric that has a scaffolding on it, and we lay on that. And the thing is, there's quite a bit of wind that comes up the wall. And so as you're laying there, it's like you feel this like nice fluffy like cloud, like almost like pick you up on your portaledge, almost like you're on a magic carpet, and you're half asleep or asleep. And you're like, oh, this is rocking me. And then all of a sudden, it'll just drop you against the anchors. And it's just like, well, bam! Like, it feels like you just wake up like instantly. Like you think, oh my gosh, this is it, you know? But the anchors are so strong. I mean, you could hang a truck off of them. And so you have to get in a place like where you have to overcome those warning lights with your brain and say like, we're still safe, you know, we're still okay. We're all clipped in. But man, being on a portaledge on a wall like that is a totally different experience than being in a tent in the wind. It's like, this is scary.
What are some of the other lessons you want your kids to learn outside?
When we go into the mountains, like you really realize the smallness of your greatness. And mountain climbing is like, I mean, when you're climbing, you're so in touch with your mortality. It's so important that I talk to my boys like about, we talk about things like one day you're going to grow up and I'm going to die. And one day you're going to die. And like, that was actually the conversation we had in El Capitan. By the way, we watched The Lion King together on my phone. That was the first time Sam had ever watched it. And like, we talked about like the father dies and the son doesn't realize that he's like the king, you know, and he's out like playing and he's not living like a king. He's living like a child, you know? And then when the pride starts like collapsing, like he like comes back and he takes his role. And me and Sam had some amazing conversations about like, Sam, everything I have one day is going to be yours and your brothers. Like you guys are going to have to lead your boys and develop your boys to be great, you know, leaders and to have an impact on the world and to do something good. Those are deep spiritual concepts that the perfect environment to do that is laid on a portaledge, you know, under the stars, talking about it.
After 5 days of pooping in a bag, sleeping on a portaledge, and eating a lot of watermelon gummies, Joe and Sam successfully ascended El Cap. While they were on the wall, their story went viral. Joe and Sam were featured on CNN, NPR, Good Morning America, and in hundreds of articles and publications. It felt good to have thousands of people congratulating them, but for the Evermore family, climbing isn't about attention and accolades. For them, going outside is about chasing wild ideas and coming together as a family. The Evermores have been through a lot and have faced challenges that even led them to change their last name. It used to be Baker. I thought you were Sam and Joe Baker, but you guys are the Evermores. Tell me about your name change.
You've heard we've had 3 boys. They're absolutely the most sacred thing to us. And when you have 3 boys, the next thing you want is a girl. We hoped for her, and she finally came. In 2021, we found out that we were having our daughter. And I can't tell you how excited me and Ann were, and my boys were. And then we go into this sonogram appointment, and the OBGYN basically told us that your baby is going to develop normally in the womb, and you're going to have a normal, 9 months here. But then after she's born, she's going to die. And at first, we could not hear that. We were like, no, we were kind of like, F you, that's not happening. We're going to find somebody who could do something, and we began to journey to figure out what we could do. And honestly, that journey led us to, there was nothing we could do. And my wife fell into a pretty dark place. We had a guest room in our home at the time, and she basically moved down into that room and just shut the door. I was trying to figure out how to rescue Ann, and I came up with this idea hey, we're a mountain climbing family. let's take Ember to all of our favorite places before she's born. Let's just take her, up a bunch of mountains. And really it was like, I knew that would like kind of light my wife back up, get her out of the dark room, and she was on board. And so we basically packed everybody up and we went on this tour, and we call it the Ember Tour, and got to swim in under Yosemite Falls with Ember, and we took her up Fairview Dome, and we took her up all of these really cool mountains and hikes, and we had all these campfires as a family where we really talked about the boy sister. At the beginning of the journey, my hope was like, I literally would pray and I'd say, like, God, is there a way that we could just miscarry this baby? Just have mercy on us. Like, this is too much to bear. And then by the end of the journey, I was saying, like, is there any way that just November could like not come? Like, is there any way we could have more time, or just a little more time? And when my boys got done that tour, they realized Ember was going to miss Christmas, which is a big deal at our house. And they were so upset about that we decided to do Christmas in October. And it ticked the HOA off, but we didn't care. And we basically, had fallen in love with little Ember. And she was born on November 4th of 2021. And it was by far this most transcendent and life-changing experience for our whole family, where every member of our family was there. People had sent us, because we decided to put our journey online. We decided to go online and like share this. And the reason we put the journey online, I'll tell you, is because people would come up to Ann and they'd say, congratulations, and we could only tell people our situation like once per day without losing it. And little Ember came, she lived for an hour and 6 minutes. And we always referred to her with this like heavenly name. It was like Ember Moonlight Evermore, as though like we would see her again, And so it was a 2-year journey of us talking to our parents, talking to Ann's parents, really walking through this journey that we decided we're going to change all of our names to Evermore and forever remember our boy sister. And our boys still talk about Ember like almost every day. Like they will, even the littlest one will mention Ember and talk about her, and because they have all these memories of all these places that they experienced talking about their sister, growing in Ann's tummy. And that whole experience, it was so profound that we just felt like changing our name, like locked it in.
The Evermores are expecting their next child in December this year. They're excited to welcome this little one into their climbing family. So I'm just kind of curious, like how you've learned to just continue to be patient, regardless.
Well, I mean, having children is what makes you patient. If you want to find patience in your life and discipline and time management skills, have kids. Before I had kids, me and my wife would binge watch Battlestar Galactica. We haven't done that since, kids make you patient. Kids make you disciplined. They make you manage your time better. If you don't, you go out of business. And then taking kids in the mountains is like another level of like care and patience and intentionality and focus. And we were climbing Moonlight Buttress and Sam shit his pants. And well, what do you do? Like, that's interesting, Sam. You could have told me about that, but you just did it. And we're 500 feet up and a long way from anywhere, but we'll figure this out.
So what did you do?
I think we hucked his underpants off the mountain, but I don't know if we should have done that.
We're not perfect. We just do the best we can do. I would have probably done the same thing.
I've spent a lot of time doing Leave No Trace, and that was not a time of Leave No Trace. That was a trace.
We talk about this a lot, but like there is like scientific proof, evidential proof that when you're side by side outside in nature, people tend to open up and be receptive to things more. Any advice to parents listening who want to raise adventurous kids?
I think that thing I said before was, first of all, there's some different pieces. One, you got to let them fall. You got to let them fail. It's okay to push your kids. We need to push them out of their comfort zone. They need to be uncomfortable sometimes. And like when you actually learn to be uncomfortable and have a good time, man, that is as good as it gets. But it's hard for parents to do that. And then I think there was a Forbes magazine. They interviewed thousands of people that stayed together through their marriage, that had families that stayed together. And they said, these are the things that are unique and similar about all these families. The number one thing on the list, they camped together. Families that went camping together was like the number one singularity of families that stayed together. And that's because like when you go out in the mountains, like shit goes wrong, you forget something or something happens and you have to solve it as a family. You know what I mean? Like you have to deal with it. It's those environments where you really grow and learn. I mean, that's where you learn deep, profound, true things.
There are so many life lessons that kids can learn from adventuring outside, like getting out of your comfort zone, setting goals, and dealing with failure. Maybe you're not quite ready to take the children in your life on a climb up El Cap, but they can get a lot from going on a short hike, playing in small waves at the beach, or trying out your local climbing gym. As for Joe and Sam, Sam just finished his next wild idea, to climb Matterhorn in Switzerland. Pretty dang cool. To follow along with their adventures, follow Sam on Instagram at Samuel Adventure, and you can follow Joe at the Evermores. That's spelled TheEvermores. If you like this episode, you might also like our parenting episode about raising adventurous kids. It features ideas and advice from a handful of our past guests. You can find the link to that episode in the show notes. Wild Ideas Worth Living is part of the REI Podcast Network. It's hosted by me, Shelby Stanger, produced by Annie Fassler, Sylvia Thomas, and Sam Piers-Nitzberg of Puddle Creative. Our senior producers are Jenny Barber and Hannah Boyd. Our executive producers are Paolo Motola and Joe Crosby. As always, we love it when you follow the show, take time to rate it, and write a review wherever you listen. And remember, some of the best adventures happen when you follow your wildest ideas.